Welcome to Transform Now, the podcast brought to you by SS&C Blue Prism. Enterprise AI isn't just a tool, it's the heartbeat of smart organizations like yours, helping to reinvent work to deliver higher growth, more customers, and better experiences. Join us as we discover how AI-powered work orchestration and automation is making things better for everyone: customers, employees, shareholders, and most importantly, you. Let's get into the show.
Hello, everyone. Brad Hairston here. Welcome to Transform Now. My guest today is Simon Torrance, based in London. Simon helped company leaders create and implement new growth strategies based on advanced technology, including AI. He's also an entrepreneur, an author, an academic, and a researcher with leading organizations such as the World Economic Forum. Welcome, Simon. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. What else can you tell us about yourself?
Well, thanks, Brad, and very nice to be here too. So I've been a strategy and innovation advisor to companies for many decades now. And on this particular topic, I was asked to run a think tank about 2 years ago on the topic of AI and AI risk by a number of insurance companies, actually. And what they wanted to know is, what's the impact of AI on our business, the insurance business? What risks does it create for us? And what risks does it create for the rest of the world? And how do we need to think about it? And I became so fascinated by the topic of new forms of AI and the risk and opportunities that it poses that I actually created a new company called AI Risk. And what we do is and I'm spending most of my time on this at the moment, but we help companies try and work out how to take advantage of advanced forms of AI in a way that has significant impact, but is also safe and trustworthy. So that's my big passion at the moment.
Okay. And Simon, when I was reviewing your profile, I think I counted something like 8 different organizations that you're involved in or leading or you founded. How do you have time for all those things concurrently? It makes my head hurt just thinking about it.
Yes, well, I don't like to be too boxed in on one thing. I like I like to work on a plethora of different things, and
Right.
I get bored very quickly. So that's why I like to have a number of different plates spinning. And the interesting thing is they all actually overlap and interact, and so they all support each other. So it sort of works.
Yeah. I like to call it a healthy form of ADHD, right? You have to be involved in multiple things concurrently, or else, as you said, it gets a little monotonous. I would say I'm similar, although I'm not involved in that many things concurrently, but I view that in my job as a good explanation of kind of how I function. So
Yeah, portfolio lifestyle.
portfolio, good. That's a good word for it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned your company AI Risk, that one of your current ventures that you founded, I think a year ago. What drove you to establish this firm among all the other things you had going on?
Yeah, well, it came out of the think tank that I'd worked on for about 4 months. And I just saw there was a gap in the market in terms of really helping, particularly senior leaders at traditional enterprises, again, particularly in the financial services sector, to really understand what's coming next down the pipe with AI. And as we all know, it's very disruptive. It's moving so fast, so fast. And it felt to me that there was an opportunity to really help people understand not only how things were developing, but what is possible today.
Right.
And to avoid, just taking very slow steps in this space. Because I think my fundamental feeling is that it's not a good idea to be a fast follower in AI. You can do it in other types of IT or other IT developments, but those who get on the front foot with particularly agentic AI and advanced forms of AI are likely to have a very significant advantage of those who are lagging behind. And so I thought, let's try and help people understand what the art of the possible is,
Yeah.
and how
Yeah.
to apply it today to create competitive advantage. And that's my focus
Right.
at the moment.
Okay. There's a little bit of irony there, I think, isn't there, with AI? Your company is called AI Risk, but you're really trying to help them be more progressive, more ambitious with what they do with AI. I like irony, by the way, so I don't, that doesn't bother me. But let's talk about the risk side. How do you, in the work that you do, how do you delineate the different type of risk that AI does present?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. So there are very sort of so let's say operational risks and
Hmm.
reputational risks. And those are sort of the ones that are potentially easier to manage relatively. So they're things like compliance with new regulations. I would say operational risks are related to things like cyber attacks, because
Hmm.
AI proliferates the ability for hackers to attack your company. But also operational risks relate to talent. Can you attract the necessary AI talent to take advantage of AI when it all
Hmm.
gets sucked up potentially to the big tech firms?
Hmm.
And then you can look at financial risk related to AI. You can spend a lot of money, but in the wrong place and get very little return on investment. So that's like a financial risk.
Hmm.
But the biggest risk, and that's why the irony is, it's less ironic than you might think, is what I call strategic risk,
Hmm.
which is being outcompeted by other companies that take advantage of AI much more effectively than you do. So
Hmm.
they grab more customer market share. They innovate quicker. They
Right.
reduce their costs much more effectively. So it gives them a very significant advantage in the market.
Hmm.
And that's the risk that I'm particularly doubling down on, the strategic risk
Right.
of being left behind by your competitors or other companies that enter your market and deploy AI to do so.
So why don't you talk about how you're advising companies around agentic and what that looks like? Who are you working with within your client base, that this agentic topic really resonates with them, and you find people that really want to lead the charge on this.
Yeah, Agentic AI is the next wave. So maybe I'll just describe that briefly and I'll come back to
Okay.
the second your question. So if you like, we've had predictive AI and traditional advanced analytics for a long time.
Hmm.
Generative AI has shaken everybody up because it's about essentially giving new cognitive powers to people and
Hmm.
organizations. And agentic AI is the next wave. And what it says is this: if you have essentially your human workforce over here, and they
Hmm.
can be augmented with generative AI and do their work more effectively and be more
Hmm.
productive. Agentic AI says that there is the potential to create another part of the organization made up of synthetic workers or AI agents
Hmm.
can undertake the same type of knowledge work that your existing human workforce can undertake.
Hmm.
But because they are made out of software, they are nearly infinite in number. The cost to create an AI agent is a tiny fraction of the cost of hiring a new knowledge worker. And so you've never had that before. You've never had the ability to, if you like, hire or create or use a near infinite number of workers. In the past, we've sort of outsourced certain activities to cheaper countries, call
Hmm.
centers and things like that. But now we can insource, but at enormous scale. And I use a quotation from Jensen Huang, from the founder of NVIDIA, to bring
Hmm.
this to life. He says that NVIDIA has got about 20,000 employees, where we're growing well, so we might have 30 or 40,000 employees in the future.
Hmm.
We are likely to have 100 million AI assistants and agents working with those biological employees. So 40, 50,000 humans,
Hmm.
100 million synthetic workers. I mean, that is mind blowing when you think
Yeah.
about it. And that's my message I'm bringing to leaders at the moment, that this
Hmm.
capability exists today. And I've been very lucky for the last year and a bit to be working not just in the theory of this and
Hmm.
helping people understand the theory, but my colleagues have been working in the trenches delivering AI agents and teams of AI agents to customers to help them operate in very, very different and better ways. And so what my key audience at the moment tends to be COOs, chief operating officers,
Okay.
CEOs, and those in charge of AI strategy for the company. And the types of companies I'm focused on particularly are knowledge intensive organizations. So financial services, banks, insurers, and other types of organizations that have a lot of knowledge workers.
Right.
And it is such a strategic topic. It has to be discussed at that level. It should actually be at the board level, to be honest, because you need to change the metrics of the organization. But for now, I'm engaging and educating the CEOs, COOs, and heads of AI about the art of the possible, not theory, but things that we're actually doing already and demonstrating significant value from.
Okay. And Simon, what is it about the agentic AI value proposition that is resonating the most with those companies? As you said, the ones that are definitely on board with it, they see value in it. Is it they're struggling to get enough human resources to do what their company requires? Or is it they want to improve the quality of customer service that they're providing? Talk about that side of, if you would. I mean, what is it that's grabbing them and convincing them that they need to go in this direction?
Yeah, I think there's three things. There's one about sort of turbocharging productivity. So, and I'll give some examples of that in a second. The other is about delivering greater customer value at almost zero marginal cost. Right. So as I said, you've got this enormous resource, almost infinite, that you could apply to how do we help our customers go about their daily lives better. And it costs virtually very, very little. And that will give us significant advantages, not least the ability to dramatically change our cost structure as well. So you've got productivity, you've got customer value, and you've got fundamental enterprise net profitability. So those are all good, ticks in the box for on a balanced scorecard for any organization.
Right.
The learning benefit of how to change the collective intelligence of our organization. So those things seem to resonate most. And I tell two stories which really bring it to life. And maybe I could share those with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's one story which says, so some people say to me, well, agents, they'll never be as good as senior knowledge workers. They can do other tasks. They can do sort of menial tasks to let us humans do the more creative stuff. Well, I tell them about this particular case study for a very large organization, which was doing, or does, like many companies, a lot of procurement of capital for capital projects. So they spend billions on building complex things. And typically for every project, they need to do a cost and risk assessment. They hire in some consultants that are paid, say, $2,000 a day from one of the big firms. Those consultants work for 6 weeks. There might be six to 10 of them. And they deliver their report. Here's our cost assessment for this capital project and the risk element with it. That small example of a replicated project, everyday project for a big company. It's about let's say $500,000 each. And you might do 30, 40, 50 of those in a year.
Right. Now,
what one of my colleagues' clients said to them is, could we do this in a different way using AI? So my colleagues designed a team of AI agents to replicate that process, but rather than to take 6 weeks to do it and cost $500,000, it takes 1 hour to do that analysis. 1 hour of better quality of 6 very highly paid consultants from Deloitte or whoever it might be. And so it demonstrates that very highly paid knowledge work can be replicated by agents now. And I'll just briefly explain how they did it. You design a set of agents to undertake similar tasks. you have, in this case, we had 30 agents. Some were trained to be economists, some were to verify the tasks, some were to quality control the tasks, some were analysts. You train them over a couple of weeks, give them the objectives, each of them different objectives, different personas, different ways of working. They have the capability to reason and break down tasks. They have memory, and they are able to take action, i.e. interact with systems and data that are inside the organization and out, and the ability to collaborate and interact with each other. And collectively as a team, once they're ready to go, they can solve the complex task in 1 hour. So you've suddenly saved yourself $500,000, potentially times however many capital projects like this you do, capital assessment projects you sped up the whole process of making decisions. And crucially also, you've retained that intelligence within the organization rather than outsourcing it to consultants. At one level, I tell people that is happening today.
Yeah.
But only in tiny pockets. It's like the phrase, the future's here, but it's not evenly distributed.
Right.
Most people have never heard when I describe that. Most very, very senior people, most people even in charge of AI strategy at very large organizations, they did not know or do not know that what I've just described is even being done or possible today. Instead, theoretically, they can understand it. They didn't know it's happening. So that's one example.
But before you move to the next, can I ask a question about that example? So you mentioned that your organization, your colleagues built these AI agents to achieve what your client was hoping to do with synthetic workers instead of human workers. Talk about the changes that had to happen in your customer's organization to not just adopt what you developed, but to support that going forward. And did they have the people and the skill sets to do it, or did it require making some changes there? You talked earlier about one of the risks you help companies address is do they have the right talent? Do they have the people and the skills they need going forward? So if you could just talk about that.
Yeah, well, that particular example is good because there's no change they had to do because it was an outsourced project.
Okay.
To a consulting company. So all they had to do there is just share with us previous assessments that they'd done. And we just sort of did it as a ring fence project, and so they got a better result. As a result, So that one was one where the human procurement manager was just dealing with a different supplier than they were before. Although the difference is, though, to your point, is that now they own these agents. These are now agents that they can redeploy on other projects. So you're quite right. Once they then think about how could they use these agents on other types of deployments, then there are issues and requirements to establish some, guidelines about how they get used for other purposes. But when it's a ring fence project, that there's almost nothing that they have to do that's different, what currently do. And this is a very, very heavily regulated sector, by the way, the one most regulated as well. So it complied with all kinds of regulations.
Yeah.
To your point, my second example would maybe help to bring.
Great. Let's do it.
Yeah. So you can always, I suppose my point is you can get real value today with today's technology in the way I've described. The other example I'm going to give you is where a company it's essentially running an operational function with agents. Now, in this case, it wanted to launch a new product line. It didn't have people who are expert at that product line. It was an insurance product line, and so it couldn't find people to hire to work with them. So another colleague of mine said, "Well, let's look and see if we could run this whole operation with AI agents." And he designed a set of agents which cover all the different aspects you need to run an insurance operation: customer representatives, underwriters, actuaries, policy admin people, GDPR compliance officers, and crucially, a manager to facilitate them. And he set them up, trained them up in a couple of months, set up the system, And they have now been running the operation for this new insurance line for the last year and
Hmm.
achieved spectacular results. They get much higher NPS, Net Promoter Scores, than equivalent human teams,
Hmm.
because the reason is because they don't sleep. They continually brainstorming how to achieve their objective, which is higher NPS scores. They communicate on Slack, or they could do on Teams. So they're brainstorming the whole time. Human workers can intervene or can participate and input their thoughts as well.
Hmm.
And they've achieved profit levels that are off the scale, again, because they give them the task of doing so, and they
Hmm.
don't have to have any lunch breaks or go home. They just keep working on it till they get to the answer. Um, but in that case, again, that was a greenfield site
Hmm.
where they needed to do something different. They did that. Um,
Right.
and now they're looking to integrate that approach across the rest of the organization.
Hmm.
So to your point, now they're looking at, well, what are the additional guardrails we might need to put in place? What's the training
Hmm.
and skilling we need for some of the rest of the human
Yeah.
workers?
Hmm.
If we're going to leverage maybe more of our data, do we need to
Hmm.
tidy up some of that data? But I think my key point is that you can always, from both of these stories, is that you can today, using technologies from even 18 months ago. I mean, both case studies are 18 months old. They're not,
Hmm.
cutting edge technology. There's even more you can do today, but you can get things going today. You can demonstrate real commercial value and the art of the possible. And what we found is that human workers, once they can see the value to achieving their objectives as well,
Hmm.
their business units' objectives, they start to like this and they want to participate more. And they they can see synthetic workers helping them be more successful, particularly if the metric is about achieving, company-wide or business unit-wide objectives more efficiently than they can before.
Hmm.
They're bonused on that as well.
Right. Right. Simon, how do you see AI risk evolving as we move toward more autonomous decision-making agents in companies like the ones you described that are embracing this? Talk about the risk side and mitigating risk, especially new risk that may come about as a result of agentic AI.
Yeah, it's a very good question. And the examples I give you, they are where a senior leader has given people the ability, allowed them to innovate. One
Hmm.
case, it was a experiment. Could we do this better than consultants? And the other, it
Right.
was a necessity was the mother of invention. We want to launch this product. We can't do it with humans. Yeah, we need something else.
Hmm.
So often those are the triggers. You've got somebody who wants to try something new and take
Right.
a risk on that, although the risk is pretty minimal. Somebody who really wants to make an entrepreneur who wants to make something happen and will drive
Hmm.
it forward. Now, in a big corporation or a bigger corporation, where the stakes might be higher in applying these principles across the organization, the key way of mitigating the risk is by having a proper strategy for undertaking or incorporating agentic AI into the
Hmm.
business. And the danger is that there's a lot of dangers, but you could run off and do all kinds of pilots and proof of concepts that get out of hand.
Hmm.
There's a secondary danger is that you outsource this to a big hyperscaler organization. So Microsoft might say to you, well, you've got Copilot, you've got Azure, you've got all our other systems that run your business. Why
Hmm.
don't we'll provide these agents to you? We'll do that for you. And now I would say that when you get to knowledge work, particularly if it's knowledge work which is delivering your competitive advantage today, rather than being a commodity,
Hmm.
and that is a very dangerous thing to outsource to a hyperscaler. Would you want to give your workforce to Google or IBM or whatever? Probably not. Well, at least the workforce that is doing things that are giving you the competitive advantage. So there's a strategic risk in
Mm-hmm.
making deals with certain companies which are going to be detrimental in the long term.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then there's a whole load of other related to the strategy needs to be baked in responsible use of AI,
Mm-hmm.
ethical use of AI, such
Yep.
that it's not just complying with regulations and is secure from a data privacy or a cybersecurity point of view, but it's also about enabling you to provide trusted and trustworthy services to your customers and
Right.
your internal staff. So I would say that the starting point is the strategy, which implies an understanding of what's possible, and then putting in place the, if you like, the capabilities to govern and control your agentic AI development, plus the management systems to govern them effectively.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You've used the term knowledge worker quite a bit, and the fact that Agentic seems to have the biggest value, in that realm. People that are knowledge workers. Sometimes that term gets used in a broader sense, where maybe someone who's handling invoices in an organization or paying suppliers would be called a knowledge worker. Do you see your clients even headed in that direction? AI agents paying invoices or dealing with sensitive data, say a healthcare company that has to treat patient data very, very carefully, because that's where the stakes are higher, and the risk, if you will, are greater, especially when you get to the regulatory side. Curious about your perspective on that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a lot of, if we start with the last part, regulatory issues. So there's a lot of effort in heavily regulated industries to
Hmm.
comply with regulations and
Right.
report. And often it's particularly, let's take an example of banks, where there's a lot, they have to report operational risk status on a
Hmm.
regular basis. It's a huge undertaking. You've got silos of different parts of the organization. They have to gather data, make it available, package it up, send it to the regulator such that everybody feels comfortable.
Right.
Now, there are all kinds of interwoven processes which are inefficient for doing that. And it's a huge cost burden. There's tens of thousands of people that work in this area in big banks.
Hmm.
And agentic AI or AI agents can reduce a lot of that friction because they can undertake the work to gather information, make decisions or process issues, collaborate with others from different silos and departments, and make decisions. So they are very good at, like humans, they're given an objective, they have to try and create a solution to achieve that objective, and they have to make a decision. And agentic teams, we've shown, are very good at doing that when they're properly trained.
Hmm.
They can do it on many, many different types of situations. A human might need to come in at certain stages to bring some expertise that the agents don't have, or to make a final decision. But their job is to do that. And crucially, they then, that agentic team, if you like, then interfaces with the existing systems of the organization to then communicate with customers or communicate with regulators or
Hmm.
other stakeholders. So to answer your question, yes, absolutely. And I think actually this is probably where the biggest threat to certain types of knowledge workers comes in terms of
Hmm.
replacement, is that mundane, if you like, paper shuffling, which is requires lots of people today.
Hmm.
That is probably going to be decimated quickest.
Right.
Just like in manufacturing business, those manufacturing jobs were hollowed out because robots took over a lot of the work that humans used to do.
Hmm.
And I'm, and so if you are just someone that's taking information from one place, filling in a form and delivering it somewhere else, that is very automatable.
Right.
And it's much easier to do. Well, increasingly agents will be able to do that better than humans. As you get up more complex types of knowledge work, there is humans in a more defensible position, but ultimately agents, per the examples I gave earlier on, are able to do
Hmm.
more of those complex tasks.
Right. Excellent. really a fascinating topic, and your experience and your, opinions on companies needing to go faster in this space, I think is particularly interesting. And sounds like you're helping companies maybe get a bit out of their comfort zone a little faster than they normally would. So I think it's great that there are companies like yours to prod companies along, because I agree it's going to be a strategic advantage for companies that move faster, as opposed to sitting back and watching others do it and learning from their mistakes. Simon, I have one last question for you before we wrap up. You've been extensively involved in the World Economic Forum, and I love the Future of Jobs report. I look forward to every release of that, and have been reading the one that came out last month quite a bit. How has your involvement with the World Economic Forum impacted your work as an advisor and an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's a great question. Actually, I've been involved with them for a long time now. What's really interesting about them is that they're like a sort of supranational body. They have, I think, a very benign view of what they feel needs to happen to drive economies and societies in a rules-based way for the good of everyone. I would say that's why they're a good thing for the world. And they think very holistically, just baked into what they do. It's based on systems thinking. We need to look at everything collectively to be able to solve problems, not just in isolated units. And so I find that a really useful way of addressing problems that my clients have if you look at things from a systems end-to-end view. And then they have, of course, very good convening power. Agentic AI was a big buzzword at Davos this year.
Yep.
And they're very good for educating and engaging leaders. So I find very stimulating working with them. Their output is good, and they're very good at bringing smart people together.
Well, Simon, it's been a real pleasure having you on. Thanks for joining the podcast today to talk about what you're doing and what you're seeing, and just the energy in the market around using the most progressive forms of AI that are out there, but also doing it, while being mindful of the risk and how to mitigate those. And fascinating stuff. And again, it was a pleasure getting to know you and hearing what you're doing and hearing your thoughts. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it, and I wish you the best.
Thanks very much, Brad. It's been a great day.
Thank you for listening to Transform Now, the podcast from SS&C Blue Prism. You can find all of our episodes on your favorite podcast channel, as well as YouTube. To stay on top of the hottest topics in the world of enterprise AI, subscribe now. The future of work is here.